Yo, what the hell's going on, guys? You're watching JavaScript Tips and Tricks Lesson 1, and since it's Christmas and all, I thought I'd do a nice festive tutorial and show you guys how to make a snowy background using the HTML5 canvas element. Alright then, gang, so there are just a couple of things you probably should be aware of before you start doing this tutorial. The first one is the HTML5 canvas element, because that's what we're going to use to draw on all the snowflakes and do the animation. So if you're unsure about that, maybe read a thing or two about it first, just to make sure you're aware about what it's all about. If you know quite a bit about it, that's great. You're going to find this a lot easier. Second thing you're going to need to know is a bit of JavaScript, because we're going to use JavaScript to draw animation onto the canvas element. Okay, so I've got a JavaScript for Beginners playlist, which I'll leave the link to down below. You can go and check that out and then dive back in here, and we're going to get cracking with the code. Alright then, guys, so this is the background effect we're going to go for in this tutorial. You can see we've got like a nice blue sky background, and we've got these little snowflakes coming down and swaying from left to right. Some of them faster than others, so pretty realistic. That's what we're going for in this tutorial, and right now we're going to jump over to the code. Alright then, guys, so I've gone ahead and made two files over here in brackets, index.html and snow.js. This is the index file, and it's dead simple. All I've done is pop this script in the head, which is linking to the snow.js over here. I'll talk you through that in a second. Then I've got this style right here, which is giving the background of the body this deep blue colour. Then in the body itself, I've got this canvas element right here with an ID of sky. Now, for those of you that don't know what a canvas element is all about, basically it just provides us with a kind of drawing surface on the web page, just like overlaying a piece of paper onto the page so that we can draw things on it and animate them. Alright, but the things that we draw on that canvas do not become a part of the document object model, so we can't reach in and grab them using CSS rules or anything like that. Okay, it's all kind of coordinated via the JavaScript API, and we're going to go through that in a minute. So that is the HTML file. That is all we need to do, nothing more, dead simple. So we'll jump through to the JavaScript file, which at the minute is just an onload event on the window, which is going to fire this function when the window loads. So this is where we're going to do all our magic. Right, now what I've done is I've already got all this code open in Notepad on my other screen. You can't see that. I'm just going to paste over little chunks at a time over to the left, and then I'll go through each section. But I am going to comment it up so you know what everything is. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to get the canvas element that we've got in the HTML, store that in a variable, and then store the context of the canvas in a variable as well. So, var canvas. In fact, what I'm going to do is just comment this first of all. I'll say get the canvas and context and store in vars. Okay, cool. And I'll just copy from this notepad file and paste it here. Cool, so we've got the var called canvas right here, which is saying document get element by ID sky, which is this thing right here, this canvas element. So we've stored that in this variable. And then the second variable is ctx, which stands for context, and it's taking this canvas variable now that we've got it here, and it's using the get context method to say that we want the 2D context. So now we can draw 2D shapes on here. All right. So the next thing I want to do is set the canvas dimensions equal to the window dimensions. So I'll write that here, set canvas dims to window height and width. Alright, and I'll copy this from my notepad file, paste it over here. Okay, so what I've done is got this first variable called W, and I've set that equal to the window.innerWidth, which is this width over here, and same for the height, H equals window.innerHeight, this height here. Then I've grabbed the canvas variable there and said I want the width to be equal to W, this thing, and the height to be equal to H, this thing. So now the canvas is all this space and all this space, the full space that the browser provides. Because by default, the canvas is something like 300 pixels in width. So we've overridden that and we've made it the full dimension of the window. Okay, the next thing I want to do is start generating the snowflakes and giving them some attributes. So I'll say generate the snowflakes and apply attributes like that, and then just going to copy this, paste it over here. Just a couple of variables. The first one is called MF, and that stands for maximum flakes. and we're saying that's equal to 100. So at any given point, I don't want any more than 100 flakes to show on the page. Okay, so I'll just pop a little comment there so you know what it is, max flakes, like that. And then this next variable called flakes is set equal to, at the minute, an empty array. But what we're going to do is store all of our snowflakes in there, all 100 of them. And each snowflake is going to be an object, and it's going to have various properties such as a width and a height and things like that. Okay? So what we're going to do now is cycle through each 100 of these flakes, and we're going to give them some random properties. So to do that, we're going to need a for loop. But I'll write a little comment first of all. I'll say loop through the empty flakes and apply attributes. Okay, so basically the empty flakes means that currently no flakes, none of these 100 flakes have any width or other attributes associated with them. Okay, so they're empty flakes, and I'm going to apply attributes to them now. Now to loop through them all, I'm going to use a for loop, and I'm just going to copy this code over here and paste it in like that. So I've said for var I equals 0, so we're setting our index variable to 0. For as long as I is less than nf, which is 100, every time add 1 to I. Then for each flake, what we're doing in here is we're saying flakes.push, so we're adding on a new flake to this array every time. So we're pushing on a new flake, and we're setting some properties. Now the first property is x, and that is set to math.random. Math is a JavaScript object. We're just using this random method, which is going to generate a number between 0 and 1, a random number. And it's going to times that by w over here. So that's going to give us any x coordinate between here, the left side of the screen, and over here, the right side of the screen. The same we're doing for y. Y is this axis, up and down. And we're saying math.random times height this time. So it's going to be any point between here and here that we're generating. Okay. And the radius is math.random times 5 plus 2. And this is going to give us a radius for each snowflake that is anywhere between 2 and about 7, because this number can be between 0 and 1. So if it was around 1, then it'd be 1 times 5, which is 5 plus 2, which is 7. If it was 0, then it'd be 0 times 5 plus 2, which is 2. So that is going to be the min and max radius. Then we're going to apply density to it. And the density is going to be what affects how quickly the snowflakes fall to the ground. Okay, some are going to fall quicker than others. So that again is set to math.random plus 1. All right, I've done that, so it's got a minimum density of 1. And then that's it. So what we're going to do is loop through all 100 of those flakes, and we're applying these properties to each one of them, and we're storing each one in this array. So now we should have 100 flakes in this array. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is draw these flakes onto the screen right here. Okay, so let's create a new function, but first let's do a comment to say draw flakes onto canvas. Then again, I'm just going to grab the function that I did before. I'm going to paste it under here. Alright, so you can see I've got function, I've called it draw flakes. And then this is my code block right here, and you can see I'm grabbing this context variable which is up here that I stored before, and I'm using the clear rect function, which is just going to clear the whole screen. Okay, starting at 0, 0, which is up here, and it's width in length and it's h in height, so it's making a rectangle which is all the screen, and it's clearing it. So that's going to get rid of anything currently on the canvas. Then I'm setting the fill style equal to white, which means if I fill the canvas or any shapes that I do, it's going to be currently white. Then I'm going to use the begin path method, which basically says to JavaScript, look, I'm about to begin a path for a shape on the canvas. I'm about to draw a shape or a path, if you like. And then what I'm doing is doing a simple for loop for I equal to 0 to begin with. And I'm basically going through each flake. So for I less than nf, then I'm going to apply 1 to I each time around. So we cycle through each of the flakes. Then in here, within the loop, I've said var f equals flakes I. So it's currently grabbing whatever flake I is equal to. So it's going to start at 0 all the way to the last one and loop through each one. Then I'm using the move to method on the context variable right here, which is basically going to move the start point or the position point of the drawing pen to these coordinates. So it's going to grab f, which is this thing, remember, dot x, which we supplied there, and f dot y, which we supplied there. So it's going to take those coordinates and go to them, for example, around about here on the canvas. Then we're going to draw an arc, which is going to start at this point and this point, specifying the radius of the arc. So if it's 3 pixels, then the radius is going to be 3 pixels away from that point. Then this thing right here means we're going to start at 0 degrees. And this math.pi times 2 is basically 360 degrees. For those of you who know math, 360 degrees is equal to 2 pi radians. And this arc function uses radians. Okay, so I'm saying start at 0 degrees at the top or whatever and go around to 2 pi radians. So do a full circle. So what I'm doing here basically is drawing a full circle. And the fact I've said true there means I want to go clockwise around that circle. Alright, so we're starting at the top at these coordinates and we're using this radius to go out from those coordinates, and we're going around a full circle from 0 degrees to 2 pi radians, so 360 degrees, in a full circle like that, and clockwise. So once we've got that full circle, I'm saying context.fill, and that's going to fill it with this style right here. It's going to make it white, alright, because that's what we set right there. So it's going to call then another function called moveFlakes, which is going to animate the flake in a minute. I'm going to show you that in a second, but it's going to do that for each of the flakes, okay? That's what it's going to do. So it's going to go through all 100 flakes into all 100 different points, and it's going to draw a circle for each one, and the circle size is dependent on this thing right here, the radius of the circle. All right, makes sense? Cool. So the next thing we need to do is animate the flakes or move them, right? So let's do a little comment right here, which just says animate the flakes, and then under there what I want to do first of all is a new variable called angle, and I'm going to set this equal to 0. We're going to use this angle variable in a minute, and I'll tell you what we're going to use it for then, but I'm just going to copy this new function and I'm going to pop it down here below here, and you can see this function is called moveFlakes. This is the function that we wrote out right here. So we're going to call this after we've made the flakes. So after we've made all those, we're going to call this function, and then the first thing I'm going to do is just increment the angle by 0.01. So each time we move the flakes, this angle is just going to move up by 0.01, and it's basically the angle is going to control the left and right movement of the flakes, right? So you can see right here what I've done is for each flake, again I've used this for loop, so for as long as I is less than mf, so we're going to cycle through all the flakes, then var f equals flakes I, so the current flake is f now, so we can use it within this loop. Then I'm saying f.y, which is the y coordinate, this one going up and down, and I'm going to set that equal to math.pow, f.d, which is the density, which we outlined up here, math.random +1. So we're taking the density and we're applying that to the power of 2. So we're saying square the density, all right? So if the density was 2, then we'd say 2 squared is 4, right there. That's what this pow function is all about. We're just squaring the density. So we're squaring the density and we're plussing 1. So that is going to be the new coordinate of the y, okay? We're adding that to the current coordinate. So if the current coordinate is 10, then we're going to add, say, like 5. So the next coordinate will be 15. Okay, so it'll go down 5 pixels or something like that. Then we're going to do something similar with the x coordinate. This time we're going to plus equal to math.sine, which is a mathematical function, and it's going to be the sine of this angle right here. And because this angle is incrementing each time we call this function, each time the flakes move, this means that this is going to create like a sine wave down the page, a bit like the mouse is doing right here. Okay, so it's going to sway from left to right like that. That's why I'm using this function, just so it appears a little bit more realistic, like the wind is grabbing hold of the snowflakes and moving it left and right, a bit like that. Then we're going to times it by 2. All right, so just so it drifts a little bit more. So we're changing the x and y coordinates each time of the flakes so that they move. And then after that, we're saying if the snowflake reaches the bottom, send a new one to the top. So as they come down here, the snowflakes like this, when it reaches the top and goes off the screen, we want to add a new one to the top so that it continues snowing. Because if we don't do that, then all the snowflakes are just going to reach the bottom and then game over. That's it, guys. No more snow. This is the shortest snowstorm you're ever going to see, about 20 seconds long. So we want to add a new one to the top every time we go around, okay? So what we're doing here is a simple if statement. And we're going to say if f, which is the current flake, dot y, so that's the y coordinate of the current flake, if that's greater than the height of this page, which means it's going to be beyond the bottom, basically, then we want to do this. We want to say flakes.i, which is the current flake, is equal to this new object, right? So we're going to set it a new random x coordinate along the top, right here, anywhere between here, much like we did up here. So for that flake, we've got an x coordinate. Then the y coordinate is going to be 0, which is right at the top because that's where we want it to start again. And then the radius is going to be the same, f.r, and the density is going to be the same as the current one, which is f.d. All right? So that's what we're doing. So just to quickly walk through this again, we're first of all storing these variables, the canvas and the context, right? Then we're setting the width and height of the canvas right here. Then we're creating the snowflakes and setting the maximum number to 100 and generating this empty array where all the snowflakes are going to be stored. Then for each snowflake, we're going to push through an object, right? So each one of these objects right here, this is the object notation. We're giving each flake some properties, x, y coordinates, radius, and density. And we're using the math.random functions to do that. And we're storing each one of these objects in this array. So then we should have, hopefully after the end of this, 100 objects in this array, and each object represents one of the snowflakes. Then down here we've got this function called drawFlakes. This is where we're going to actually draw the flakes onto the canvas, right? So for each one, each time we call this, we're going to clear the rectangle, so we're going to erase what's on there currently. Then we're going to set the fill style of the context to white, so that whatever shapes we do, we can fill it with white. Then we're going to begin a path. We have to use that method to begin a certain path using the JavaScript API for the canvas. Then for each snowflake right here, we're going to move it to a random point on the screen, which we specified right here. You can see f.x and f.y. So whatever that object x and y coordinates are, we're going to move to that point on the canvas like that. And we're going to generate this arc, which is going to make a circle shape like that. All right. Then we're going to fill that circle with the white, which we specified up here. So it's going to create all these different snowflakes on the page, right? After we've done all of those, we're going to call this moveFlakes function, because currently they're all static there on the page. So we're going to call this moveFlakes function after we've done that to move them. So first thing we've done is set the angle to 0. And then each time we call this moveFlakes function, it's going to add this 0.01 value to the angle. So it's going to increment each time. Then each snowflake, it's going to cycle through each one, and it's going to update the x and y coordinates of each one so that they move downwards and side to side, right? The way we move it downwards is by saying f.y. Remember, f is set to the current flake, so f.y is the y coordinate. I've set that to math.pow of the density to the power of 2. So it's the density to the power of 2 plus 1. So we're adding this value to the y coordinate each time, so it goes further down, and it goes down at different rates. Okay, remember the density controls how fast it falls down. So if you've got a higher density snowflake, it's going to fall down quickly. All right. Then we're updating the x coordinate to be equal to math.sine, which is going to make this sine wave down here, and it's going to take this angle, which is constantly incrementing. So it's going to go like this. All right. Then if the snowflake reaches the bottom, we're going to apply these new coordinates and properties to the snowflake so that it starts again at the top and it comes down again. All right. So there's just one more thing I need to do, and that is to call this drawFlakes method, say like every 25 milliseconds or something like that, so that it constantly calls it and they're constantly moving down, all right? So let's come right here at the end of that function, and we'll just say set interval, and then we're going to call the drawFlakes method, drawFlakes, and then say every 25 milliseconds or something like that. So I'll save that. And then if I go over here and refresh, voila, there we go, guys. There is our snow effect, and it's all coming down, going left to right. It's going right at the minute currently, but you'll see in a second it's going to drift to the left again, like that. Pretty cool, right? So there you have it, my friends. That is a snow effect using the canvas element and some JavaScript. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them down below. Otherwise, guys, I'll see you in the next tutorial in this series.